Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to our live feed update for August 28th. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and I'm here today to update you on everything that happened yesterday on the Big Brother 26 live feeds. It was day 43 in the house, just one day short of day 44, the wild day. So we'll see if there's another one coming up soon. But we've got some stuff to talk about, primarily just the house just running rampant with paranoia here in the Big Brother 26 house. And with me to talk through it all is Cory. How you doing, Cory?
It's boys' night.
Boys' night.
Boys' nights go crazy.
Let's do some
I just
cleaning.
feel exactly. I just feel grateful. They finally created a twist so inconsequential that they can show it to us on the feeds.
Right. Yeah, they started showing the AI instigator. And let me tell you, it's not in my notes. I don't plan to share much of what's in the AI
You
instigator.
haven't been studying?
I have not been studying the grocery list. No.
Get on it.
Yeah. All right. Well, of course, here's what's happening. T-Core, the HOH, nominated Cam McKenzie. Tucker, Cam won the veto, used it on himself, and T-Core put Angela up on the block in Cam's place. There's a whole bunch of drama that happened in regards to that, but it honestly doesn't even matter at this point because this house just moves and it keeps moving and it doesn't stop moving.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, with that in mind, Angela, Mackenzie, Tucker on the block. One of them is going to leave. And really, like, things are just continuing to move that there's really not much more setup to talk about beyond that. Because it just kind of goes from there.
Yeah, and so many of the conversations are like, I can't wait to do this on the live show. So basically all we can do, which has been basically every Tuesday, Wednesday update, is like, we will see what happens. Here are the possibilities. And then the AI arena invalidates 70% of them.
Mhm. Yes, and that's basically how we start the day is that, Chelsea is still talking to Cam. Now, something that's been happening is that Chelsea and Cam have been, like, trying now, which is nice, and they're working together, partly in secret and, trying to make their way into a power structure and, take down the one that currently exists. They would love to take out Tucker this week, but they know that the votes are gonna be a little bit tricky to gather. They probably would need Quinn's vote. They correctly recognize that, but it's too dangerous to actively try to gather those votes before they even know that Tucker is actually an option. And so there is mention of like, well, Chelsea says maybe we should just wait until after the AI arena and then see if we can gather up some last minute votes.
I love the idea of Cam calling people into rooms, scrambling, trying to pull these votes together. I have a theory on Cam. Yesterday he talked about, I won the veto and I still was like only called into the DR one time this week. I think this active strategizing version of Cam that we're seeing is just trying to get more diary rooms. And I
That
think
might
it's going to work, I hope.
Yeah, I mean, the diary rooms we have seen from Cam are the ones where he is talking strategy. So he probably is like, okay, I guess if I try more in the game, they'll start showing me on the show more.
Yeah, and I just want to be very careful when we're like analyzing Cam's game because it looks good so far. I just don't know if we're holding it relative to Big Brother or relative to Cam of the past. Because right now, what he's doing, it's blowing me away, but I feel like I've set my standards a little bit too low.
Yes. I mean, I think you also, at this point, we just have to rate anybody that is very physically fit higher than
Yeah.
most other people because that's how the game is played now.
Physically fit and likable enough to give a jury vote. I think them like targeting Tucker is obviously the right move. The problem is, I don't think they're like in a central enough house position to pull together this kind of flip last minute.
Mhm.
I don't know if T-Core and Chemo had that perception when they were flipping the votes a couple of weeks back, but I don't like this plan. I think especially when they're relying on Quinn as a swing vote. I feel like Quinn's the type of guy who wants to think things through.
Yeah, I think that they can get these votes. I don't know that they can at the last minute. I think that if Quinn spent all week long feeling like, okay, I can't get Tucker out, He's going to be here. I'm gonna need to target him next week. And then you approach him at the last minute. You're like, actually, we have the votes. Like, he just hasn't planned for that. And so I really think you do need to do some work ahead of time. You also need to do some work to protect MJ, who you really shouldn't lose here. And I would say, again, you should be working on MJ and making sure that she's not drifting away, because she tends to drift, and we'll talk about that today. So, uh,
Mhm.
I like that Chelsea and Cam are doing more work. I think that, Chelsea in particular, she needs to be doing more work here today. You can't let go of the gas pedal at all, really, on this album.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of players on kind of I hesitate to even say that side of the house because there are no sides. But when it comes to like Quinn and Chelsea, who I think work a lot better from a bad position, and I fear the second they get back on top, they'll self-sabotage and destroy their position again just by either getting passive or being way too active in Quinn's case. But I do like these versions of them where they're kind of just playing this scrappy game from the bottom middle, trying to figure things out.
Mhm. So Tucker and Joseph are gonna be talking with Cam, themselves. You know, Cam had made this final 2 with Tucker before the veto, and Joseph had this long conversation with Cam the day before, and so the 3 of them are now getting together, and they're talking about like potentially working together and how, hey, if you're going to suspect that the men are working together, why not? Like, they're going to have a girls' night tonight. I bet they're going to be talking about the women working together. We should be doing something. We should be looking out for each other. They throw out some names that they should be careful of with Joseph. And then Cam later tells Chelsea about
Yeah, it's about time a men's alliance starts ratting each other out to the women in the house.
this. Right?
It's a huge step for Big Brother house guests.
I mean, it's gotten to the point where it's almost not worth mentioning new alliances because they're all so fake and don't matter.
Yeah, I think the only benefit of alliances is sometimes when people are making their nominations, they feel more hesitant to put someone in one of their supposed alliances up. But in terms of like long game stability, there is nothing. And I will say, these three did try to name their alliance. And I don't think we're going to go into what their planned name was.
Yeah, that's why Joseph. We need to be careful of this name with Joseph in there.
Yeah,
It's too much.
it was
Uh,
too much for anyone.
yes. I mean, you say that about like hesitancy in terms of nominating your alliance members, and yet in this week we have 2 alliance members of the HOH on the block.
Well, yeah, like 2 alliance members, like 2 or 3 times over. Like, they're in several alliances together. But if you
Right.
volunteer, that my rule is null and void.
There you go. Um, Now, Joseph does talk to Tucker, and they're doing their regular critics thing. But notably, he mentions to Tucker that he does think they will need to break up the Chemo Rubina T-Core trio at some point. He says this multiple times. So this is something that's on Joseph's mind, in terms of like, I think where he's looking next. I mean, moving forward in this game, if you're planting yourself into Joseph's head and you think, I've got my final 2 with Tucker, and I'm gonna go to the final 2 with him, and everyone's gonna vote for me because I've already told them that he shouldn't win. And then I'm also gonna bring Leah to the final 3 and then probably break her heart by choosing to bring Tucker, but that's okay because I really like her and things will work out after the show. And Quinn, I'll drag him along for a while because he sucks at this game too much. And you start to realize that like people like Rubina, people like Chemo, the people that he's worried about, they're not really in his long-term plans. And I think he's looking at potentially taking shots at them soon.
It's a trap, though. You can't go to Tucker and say, "We gotta start worrying about Rubina." I mean, that doesn't happen. Jared, we gotta start worrying about Blue. Corey, we gotta start worrying about America. Like, right now, it does seem like Tucker's number one loyalty is to Joseph, but that is very temporary, and it is, like, only a matter of time until Rubina takes that spot if she hasn't already. So, like, I don't hate the idea of Joseph heading in that direction. Part of me is like, do you just want to get rid of Cam to hope Tucker can comp out more to help you? because I just struggle to see a way where Joseph can like navigate his way to the end in a good, honest Big Brother fashion.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that like when Joseph first mentioned that he wanted to bring Tucker to the final two, there was a lot of talk about like, well, that this is not gonna really happen though. I mean, come on, like he's just thinking this, but like this has actively changed the course of Joseph's game for the worse, not for the better, like joining the mafia.
Mm,
And he has just gone so all in on this plan, on this idea of Tucker in the final 2. Every conversation is tinged with this agenda because he lacks subtlety. And so every conversation is like, we talked about this on the Getaway podcast, that like that there was this moment where one of the players was just like, "Oh, Steven, yes, Steven, you're doing so well." Like that is Joseph with Tucker. Like everything Tucker does, Joseph is like, "Oh yes, that's so good for us. It's so good for us that Tucker's doing this. Tucker, oh, this is so good. He's gonna lose the game, guys. It's totally fine to bring him to the end. Oh, Tucker's winning things. That's great for us. Tucker lost a thing. That's great for us. Tucker's mad at Angela. That's great for us. Now he's friends with Angela again. That's also great for us, guys. It's just always so good for us, whatever Tucker does."
I'm watching Big Brother 7 now, and it's giving Howie with Kaser. Kaser wins HOH, and Howie's jumping around the backyard celebrating, and James has to be like, Howie, shut up. Like, stop. The problem with Joseph, very simply, is like, I don't think he has a better option. Socially, he's so out of it that like Tucker is really his like last dying breath in the house. Getting to the final two with him, like honestly, my plan for Joseph is try to get to the final two with Tucker, and hopefully Tucker gets snipped somewhere along the way.
So that's that's what's going on there. We'll see where Joseph goes. Now, speaking of Rubina, she spends the day kind of spiraling out again. She's again worried about uh Tucker, and is he playing me? Is this real? He's an actor. Did he kiss me in front of everyone just to plant a target on me? Was that what the idea was?
Mhm.
And genuinely, she spends like a good portion of this day, and we talked about this on the roundtable, but like she's stopped playing the game and she started playing relationship. And like fair to her, the relationship matters more to her than the game. She says so. Like she's like, I don't even care about the game anymore. I just care about this whole thing with Tucker. Because that's the real win condition for me at this point. Is getting a relationship with Tucker, because by the end of the day, she's like back on board and she's like talking about like them being together forever and stuff like that. But like this is really occupying a lot of her mental space, and it's definitely hurting her in the game.
I think this was most concerning to me when she was nominated a few weeks ago, and it felt like that entire week she talked more about Tucker than she had at any point during the season. Like her priorities are not like perfectly straight, and I think you can tell that she's kind of like distracted when MJ is able to like get in her head
Yes.
because she's the only one MJ can get through to at all.
Well, no, MJ got through to Tucker.
Well, they are perfect for each other, Taran.
Dude, they truly are. Um, and like it's again, it's like I get it, like to some degree, that's she's deep in the throes of this relationship. But while being in this very like weird environment, Corey, I'm sure
Yeah.
you can somewhat
Well,
relate.
I think the problem is like I know I uttered the sentence America's more important to me than the game. That
Mhm.
was when I was already on the block and being evicted almost guaranteed. Right. And
Yeah.
part of that was a campaign as well of like the second I start like campaigning against America, that house would have turned on me and called me a million names.
Mhm.
I don't think Rubina has much strategic thought when it comes to what she's saying here. Like ultimately when it comes to Rubina and Tucker, Rubina is in a much more winning position than Tucker, unless you just want to go all in on competitions. So, like, it is concerning, but I still like her positioning, and I don't think she's really in any immediate danger.
Yes, and that's the thing about Rubina as well, is that, like, I do think her head is out of the game right now. I do think that she's overly hyper focused on Tucker. Um, but I think this is like a turning point in their relationship. Like this is like a inflection point. Like it's like uh they're going to, like this is they're transitioning from one stage of their relationship to another, which is like we've been kissing a little bit, like we're into each other, but now we're actually facing some strife, some turmoil. Can we get through that? Can we get over that bumpy patch? And if so, I think they'll be more locked in together, assuming he stays.
Yeah.
And I think she will get her head a little bit more back in the game after this section ends, or if he leaves. But we'll see.
I am very curious, Taran, because it's the way Rubina's talked about in the house. It blows me away. It's always Chemo Tikor and Rubina. It's never Rubina and Tucker. And it's just odd to me because especially earlier in this season, anyone who got close to even being considered a showmance, Chelsea would like step on it. We got to get rid of him. No showmance is allowed. Maybe it's just Tucker's compatibility that people are scared to talk about it, but it's very odd to me.
Well, I think it's because people are scared to target Tucker.
Yeah.
So they can't say Tucker and Rubina. They have to say Rubina and Chemo, really. Uh, but the reality is that a good amount of those people would actually backdoor Tucker if they had the option. But like Tucker is so not targetable that they can't even talk about targeting him and Rubina. Because normally you would just put Tucker and Rubina up on the block and go have fun. But you can't really do that with the
Taran,
current.
I'm getting confused. Is Tucker on the block this week? Like, isn't that
He is,
okay? Whatever.
but he has a 1 in 3
Well,
chance of surviving, and he's won 2 of these before, so
Angela's won 2 HOHs before.
it's true. Tucker's been immune for 5 straight weeks, though.
Let's make it 6.
Exactly. I understand the hesitance here. Tucker is very likely to be safe and very volatile. Like any hint of anybody saying anything against him, and you are his target for the next 2 weeks, and he is very likely to win AI and then potentially HOH. Like if it's slip and slide like he wants, he's basically guaranteed. So it's like, I mean, unless Cam can keep up with him, I don't know. So like, that's, even if it's only 2 people can win, Cam or Tucker, that's so unbelievably bad for you if you campaigned hard to get him out and then he wasn't even an option. I do get it. Like it's a
Yeah.
very tough position. We've talked about this, that he should be basically immune for as long as AI is around.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of people like criticize you and just like people who talk about like comp beasts in this way of like can't everyone just like win comps themselves? And I think there is something very impressive about what Tucker's doing. Like competitions are an element of the game and he's crushing that element of the game. It's just from the other player's perspective, it kind of just puts you in this bind where you're either the dummy who targets the comp beast or you're the dummy who lets the comp beast get to the end.
Mhm.
And let's be honest, I'm not going to be surprised on Thursday if they walk into the backyard and it's the wall again. Like it's
Right.
tough.
Yeah, like there's a good chance that you could like, especially, again, this season has been a bit better, but like given the trends of the last 5, 6 years, it would not be surprising at all if you walked out into the AI arena and you said, "Oh, Tucker's definitely going to win this." And then you walk into the following HOH and you say, "Oh, either Tucker or Cam is definitely going to win this." And it's like, what do you do there? That's
And
a tough place to be.
I think the biggest conversation point I've seen online this week is does it make sense for T Core to target Tucker? Tucker wants to protect T Core. He's going to win competitions, keep her safe. Jag was safe from the final 9 on sans 1 week, 1 double eviction. It's never too early. Like, even for someone like Joseph and Rubina, who I really do think it benefits to keep Tucker in right now, that would be my call if I was them. Getting rid of him right now is an okay move to a great move for every single person in the house because you just don't know how these things are going to play out. And just getting it out of the way while you can, like, it can't be that terrible of a move.
Exactly. And I said this last night, but like, barring the first week, which wasn't even a real opportunity to take Tucker out because they were busy taking out another big, massive physical threat. This is basically potentially, because it might not even be, this might be the first time Tucker is ever vulnerable in the game in a serious way. And the only reason he's vulnerable right now is because the other physical guy left in the house beat him in the veto competition. And it was the two of them in the end. They were the final two people left in that comp. Um, and for all you know, this is one of maybe two times this is ever going to be possible. Maybe three tops at this point, given how immune he has been
Yeah.
to this point. And if that one or two times has a Bowie Jane, aka a Rubina or a Joseph,
Yeah.
who wins that HOH, you don't even get that shot. Like, and then this is literally the only chance you ever had to take the guy out. Like
It should
that's
be also noted that, like, Tucker makes himself vulnerable more than he should. Like, he's on the block because he's
exactly.
volunteering. He's given away a veto. Like, he really is. He's been immune for so many weeks, and he's thrown away certain immunities. It's kind
Yeah.
of crazy. And look, I think I have to imagine we have one more week of AI Arena max. But what that means is that gives you a 2 to 3 week window of a backdoor, and those last weeks are not real backdoor options. That's a prayer he doesn't get picked in the veto draw because there's 6 people and 7 people competing, or the
Mhm.
opposite. So, like, I think there's going to be one window at the final 9 when you could legitimately backdoor Tucker. That's when we got rid of Cam. But how many people are going to house guest choice him? So it's just tough.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So Quinn talks to Joseph. And Quinn thinks that because the main topic of conversation that I think will be that people will have over the next day or so is going to be Angela versus MJ on the block. Which one goes home? Now, T-Core was leaning MJ goes home, but it's T-Core. She could really go either way. T-Core actually doesn't have too much conversation about this yet because it's only Tuesday. She's got until Thursday night to make this decision. So she's gonna have those conversations on Thursday, probably.
Yeah.
She's a procrastinator. But there are some other people having this conversation, primarily Quinn, who would really prefer to see Angela leave. And so he pitches this to Joseph. Now, Joseph had already had the conversation. He actually prefer Angela to stay. He feels like he has a good relationship with Angela, and he doesn't have the best relationship with MJ. And Tucker really wants MJ to leave, and so he feels like that makes sense to him. However, Quinn makes a pitch to him that seemingly changes his mind, because what Quinn says is, "Hey, if we take Angela out, that brings Leah closer to us." And Joseph is like, "But I think Leah's already close to us." And he's like, "Yeah, but she'll be even closer because she won't have Angela." And he's like, "Hmm, you actually make a good point, Quinn."
They almost, I don't know if it was in this conversation earlier in the day, they almost like predicted or forecasted the Leah Angela final too. Like, it didn't exist when they talked about it, but it did exist later in the day. Um,
It's been sort of building because
yeah.
Angela pitched so hard to keep Leah off the block, so now everyone's aware of how close they are.
Mhm.
And this is now, yes, culminating into actual strategic relationship.
Yeah, I think first of all, I have a couple of things with Quinn and Joseph. It feels like they're still keeping up this facade with each other that they have a final two, even though obviously neither of them care about the other in the end game, which I just find funny to watch because it just they're both BSing each other and they're both aware that they're BSing each other. But Joseph is just so transparent with his wanting to keep Angela that, like, I think it makes it easier for Quinn to argue against that idea because I think Quinn is trying to come up with justifications to convince Joseph, where Joseph is just like, like, I think Angela's good for us. There's really not much behind the words. And the one thing I do agree with Quinn about, because he's been a all over the place kind of player, I think getting rid of Angela is just the right call for, in the same way of like getting rid of Tucker is the right call because he's a compies. Getting rid of Angela is the right call because she is going to be dragged very far into the game.
Mhm.
So either one of these people leaving, I feel like is good for everyone, give or take one or two people.
Yeah, I agree, especially because it's not like she's loyal to people. Now, that said, I think that, the thing is, if you're not with MJ,
Yeah.
MJ is more dangerous, and so that's why Angela is dangerous because she's always gonna be less dangerous than somebody who's against you that's on the block. But But if MJ is not against you, and she's not really actually against really anyone because she's really just still drifting around.
Yeah.
So if you're able to pick MJ up, actually, which Quinn is going to try to do, then it does make a lot of sense to try to to try to take Angela out. Now, again, seemingly Joseph is kind of convinced here. Now, you talked about this dynamic between Quinn and Joseph. It's getting worse. Like, so there's always been this little bit of rivalry, right? Like Quinn being like, "Hey, which one's gonna get the better deep dive?" And now they're both kind of in one-sided relationships with Leah, and they
Mhm.
both have crushes on Leah, and I think most importantly for Joseph, like he's noticing that Quinn also has a relationship with Leah, and Quinn's like, "Oh, the three of us should get in an alliance," and Joseph's like, I don't know if the 3 of us need to, because like, he has an alliance with Leah. And I think there's a little bit of, competitiveness happening.
Yeah.
And so I'd mentioned this last night on the roundtable, but there's this moment where Quinn, is talking to Joseph about the alliance that he mentioned, the night before with T-Core Chemo and Rubina, where it was like, "Hey, this is so good. It's great news. I was talking to them last night, and I feel like we can start an alliance, like the 3 of them plus us 2, something like that." And Joseph is just like, "Oh, yeah, that was me. Yeah, I did that. I was talking to them about like, hey, let's swap out Angela for either Quinn or Leah. And it'll probably be you because you're better at comps." Um, and and Quinn was just like, "Oh, well, also because 'cause I'm good at the game, right?" And Joseph's like, "No, not really. You're not
Well,
very good."
Joseph's a little bit mean to Quinn, like, kind of
Yep.
consistently, and it's in a very jokey fashion, but in the same way that Joseph jokes about him being the star of the show and gonna get all the jury votes, and, like, there's an air of sarcasm, but there's definitely a very clear underlying truth to it. It's what he thinks, and, Quinn's responding in the "ha ha ha," but there's also an underlying hurt there. So it's a very weird thing to watch these 2 talk. But, like, the main point I kind of took from this whole conversation was this weird Leah dynamic, because I understand both of them. Forget about the crush. From a strategic standpoint, wanting to bring Leah as far as they can. It's the only number they both rightfully or wrongfully view as, like, their number. She can't be both of your numbers. I think ultimately both of them just believe they really have Leah,
Yep.
and they're both wrong.
Yep. And I think they're both a little bit, I think Joseph more than Quinn, a little bit threatened by the other one in terms of like them encroaching upon their territory as a
Ooh, I have a question, Taran.
yeah.
Did Quinn throw the arm wrestle to Joseph? Because if Quinn wins that arm wrestle, I fear Joseph's targeting Quinn next week.
I think so too. I I mean, he definitely threw to Leah, which
Mm.
makes me think he was definitely in the mindset of throwing.
I saw them
But
on the wall comp, Taran. There's no
yeah,
way Joseph beats Quinn in that.
um yeah, you're probably, I mean, listen, arm wrestling is not actually about strength, as much, I mean, it is, but, like,
Yeah.
it's mostly technique, and if somebody is not using like, if somebody's using is 2 amateur arm wrestlers, neither of them are using proper technique, so it's mostly just gonna be about, like, who's cheating the most.
Yeah.
Um, but, yeah, who knows? Who knows? Uh But there is this, again, this is like sort of what's going on is that like there's also this ongoing debate between the 2 of them about who would win in a fight. Um, and, uh, Joseph is like Quinn is like, "Oh, I'd totally beat you in a fight. Like, I'm an athlete, right?" And Joseph is like, "Yeah, I kind of have to concede to that. But, actually, I think I would surprise you. I would really I do whatever he said he did. Like very, very Tucker, I was trained by the CIA. Like, I would actually give you a big run for your money." And then Quinn was like, "Oh yeah, but like, I mean, even if you had better technique, like I've got the cardio. Like, if we're round 3 and we're both really tired, like I'm gonna be still go." And again, like they're joking,
Yeah.
but they're not joking.
I think we've all had conversations with our friends like this where like, well, it depends on the arena. Like if it's an octagon, you'd have the edge, but if it's an open field, I would just be able to run. And it's very funny to watch. I also think that there's like idea in Joseph's subconscious of I've been throwing every comp. If I wanted to, I'd have 3 vetoes and 2 HOHs by now.
Yeah.
And I think he needs to start trying in comps so he can be humbled in that way. I felt that way certainly. After 6 weeks of throwing comps, I like won the next HOH. I was like 1 for 1. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, oh, this is easy. And I proceed to lose every comp by 3 or 4 minutes. So I do think Joseph still believes he's got more physical whatever than he actually has.
Yeah, he's also telling more and more people about all the comps he's throwing.
It's the mark I've left on the season, Taran. It is not good. He was telling Cam, and
Yeah.
it's okay. Part of me doesn't hate it. And this is me full devil's advocate on Joseph's behalf.
Mhm.
The whole premise of not telling people you're throwing comps is you tell people you're throwing comps and you become a useless ally.
Right.
Because they're working with you, you're not winning comps to protect them.
Mhm.
But no one wants to align with Joseph.
Yeah, he has no allies.
So does the idea that I'm throwing comps
Yeah.
make you like a more attractive prospect to bring towards the end because he wants to play the Dr. Will game? And you could say maybe he's lying about that. I don't think he is.
Yeah. No,
So
I think you're right. I
yeah.
think that's a very good devil's argument. I don't think it's what he's doing intentionally, but I do think you're right.
Yeah, it's not a shred of intentionality, but he will claim it's intentional in the deep dive.
I love that, like, I love that he made a point of talking about how he watched you give the advice of don't tell people you're throwing competitions, told somebody else that he watched you give that advice, and then subsequently ignored that advice for the rest of the game.
Have you ever seen Quinn try to give him advice? It's the same thing. Like Joseph is an advice giver, not an advice taker. Honestly, I like right now of my 2 students, Quinn's getting a mid C. Joseph, he's slipping.
Oh boy. Yeah, I can just imagine the deep dive with Joseph. Like, you're all right at these deep dives. You could be much better though. I'm not gonna lie. I personally, I would probably clear you in deep dives, but I choose to throw them. So
No, Taryn, you're great at deep dives, but like you know, at the comic book store, you got to talk a lot. So like, I think I've got a little bit more talking, but like, you're really great. But I don't know. Honestly, I think here's what I want, Taryn. I think you should get them both in a call and do a joint 3-way deep dive.
I've been planning on that. Oh boy. Okay. So Quinn and Joseph talk with Chemo and Tucker about the vote. And both Quinn and Joseph are now pitching that Angela should leave. With the argument that if you're up against Angela on the block, you have no argument to stay. Whereas if you're against MJ, at least you have an argument. Tucker says, I feel the opposite. Tucker does not agree. He is not swayed. But this is an ongoing debate.
Yeah, I feel like it's a very meta thing as well because you're saying no one's going to vote him out. But keep in mind, you guys are the house guests, so you all can vote her out whenever you want. I think Tucker's just underestimating the actual human element of like when you're in the game and it comes down to that decision, you won't vote her out. It's just hard for you to like. I think Tucker is like, what do you mean I'm not going to vote her out? I will. We will. But especially when you got 4 people in a room, you can almost shut down that argument immediately. But it's, maybe if Tucker watched a couple more seasons.
All right, let's get into some of the really wacky stuff from yesterday because I talked about Paranoia. So here's what I believe happens here. MJ is still theorizing all over the place. She thinks that there's a guys alliance. She thinks that like the Pentagon might still be. She thinks there's a bunch of theories that MJ has, and she just keeps spouting them out. And normally, when you have a player who's completely in the dark about things, giving theories about who might be in alliances, everybody else kind of like sniggers behind their back, like, "Can you believe what MJ thinks?" Like, oh my god.
Mhm.
But for whatever reason, in this house, anytime anybody says a theory, and MJ says a lot of them, people are like, wait, there's another alliance?
Well, she speaks very definitively. She's confident.
So she's been running through the names of alliances, and she gets to the Ballers Alliance. Like, wait, who is in the Ballers Alliance? Hold on. Now, just to remind the audience, the Ballers, or as I called them, the Ball Boys, that was the alliance that Tucker made with Kenny, and Cedric and Cam, with the intention of using the veto on Angela and backdooring Quinn. That alliance died within a day because Cedric did not go through with the plan. So this is the alliance that, just so you know, this Tucker made. This is the alliance that Tucker made. Okay.
Yeah.
So MJ starts thinking, the Ballers Alliance. Who could be in the Ballers Alliance? And then she thinks, well, Cam, Quinn, and Chelsea, they're all athletes. They're ballers. They're also the 3 remaining Pentagon members. What if the Ballers Alliance is Quinn, Cam, and Chelsea? She says this to Tucker, who made the Ballers Alliance.
Yeah.
Tucker goes, wait, you're right.
Oh, man, if only we had someone other than Chemo and T-Core to clear up this whole situation, just to ask one direct question.
So Tucker now, seemingly, it's possible he's just pretending to believe this. It's also
Absolutely not
possible
possible.
it's also possible. Yeah, you're right. He never does that. He always pretends that he pretended to believe it, but the reality is that he always believes it and then was talked out of it. But the other possibility, if we're giving him any amount of credit here, is that I called them the Ball Boys. MJ's calling them the Ballers. I think the actual alliance name was like the Ball Players or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's possible that he thinks that this is a separate alliance, but the reality is that, like, he's just really probably misinterpreting and misunderstanding and misremembering that this alliance that she is talking about is his alliance, the one that he made. And so he starts telling all of his alliance, Rubina, Chemo, T-Core. He's like, guys, I knew we couldn't trust Quinn. He's in an alliance with Cam and Chelsea that's called the Ballers, and they're each grabbing a person and pretending to be with that person, and we have to target them.
Yeah. I mean, I think this season, proactive lying would be ridiculously effective because there's not much fact checking going around. And I don't think my suspicion with this whole Tucker thing, I don't think Tucker remembers the Ballers Alliance at all. I don't even think he's like misinterpreting, like, wait, I wasn't in that alliance. This is the real. I think he doesn't remember the alliance existing, and this is just like a new entity to him.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, that was the vibe that I got.
And again, Chemo and T-Core, we should talk to Quinn about this.
Exactly. They're like, should we ask Quinn? He's like, no.
Yeah. It's a red flag, but I think, like, even Chemo and T-Core by themselves are talking like we should just ask Quinn, and they say yes, we're going to directly ask Quinn, and we'll see.
Yeah. They don't really believe this because, of course, they shouldn't. They think that Tucker's being paranoid, which he is. And also, like, I talked about this last night, but like Tucker, like, what are you doing? Like, you have chased away so many of your votes to stay this week. Quinn is a pretty crucial one. Like, if Quinn has any hint that you are targeting him again or suspicious of him yet again, like, when it comes down to the 2 minutes before the vote and you're still on the block and Chelsea and Cam go up to Quinn and say, hey, are you down? Like, don't give him more reasons for no reason to vote you out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the screen right now. He definitely feels like he has Chemo and Rubina. I think he feels like he'd have Angela if she'd come off the block, but I don't know in his head what votes he thinks he has. Like it doesn't look good. I think he's not really preparing for the possibility of being on the block by
Yeah, I think so
eviction.
too.
So, and he's right.
Yeah. Now in the meantime, Quinn talks to MJ and says, "Hey, I really want you to stay. I think we can get the votes to keep you over Angela, and so on and so forth." And so now in MJ's mind, because it all has to like go through an interpretation of MJ's perspective. In MJ's mind, this is Quinn saying, "The guys want you to stay. I am the representative of the men."
Yeah. Well, Quinn did not just guarantee the votes to stay. Quinn said I could probably make it unanimous. Like how? How are we making it unanimous against Angela? Maybe I guess.
I think what he's trying to do is say, "I'm the one pushing this," because he is. He wants credit for it.
Yeah.
But he's saying that, like, by the time he makes it happen, it will be unanimous, but don't get it twisted. I'm the one that pushed for it. The other people are just jumping on. Um,
Okay.
but I don't think it came across that way.
Yeah, I could understand that because it was a big confusion when we got rid of Izzy and kept Felicia. It was an 8-1 vote.
Mhm,
And Felicia was unclear on exactly what happened for about a couple of weeks. Maybe I should have been more clear about that. But I
mhm.
think like him, I guess, trying to get ahead of it. Ultimately, it's MJ, so I don't think it's that important. But I guess I could understand like this. You've seen McQuincy on Twitter. Like I think Mackenzie is almost a better path for Quinn than Leah. I don't know if we'll get
Certainly.
there, but maybe. Well, the problem is I mean, I don't trust Leah at all either, but I don't know if Mackenzie thinks he's working with the guys. Like there's really
Yeah,
no good
but
path, but I just like them.
The thing about Mackenzie over Leah is that at least Mackenzie doesn't actively dislike Quinn.
I think they genuinely like each other. Like it seems like a friendship. I think Mackenzie said she'd be willing to cuddle with Quinn after a few more weeks, which that's crazy. But if there's something that could be worked out there, is she going to be evicted in 2 days? We'll see.
Yeah. I also, think one of my favorite, side plots of the season so far is how often I don't think I've mentioned this in the updates, but how often MJ is just, like, dunking on Matt on the feeds. Like, he was so annoying. He ruined my game.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure Matt's having a field day on TikTok. Like I truly that's what makes because I don't think people like, people talking bad about you, you're on the outside watching the feeds, probably feels bad. I think Matt, every time his name is mentioned, just gets a rush of dopamine. So I don't think he's taking it too hard.
And for what it's worth, I don't think she's being, like, super serious about it, but I think
No.
it's very funny. Um, okay, so, girls' night finally happens. And they're upstairs. They're talking about who runs the world. Girl. Um, and then they're hanging out upstairs. And meanwhile, the boys downstairs they're cleaning. Pretty funny
Yeah.
juxtaposition,
It's kind of crazy. Like the existence of girls' night guarantees the existence of boys' night.
right?
um, they didn't really take advantage of that, but they did all speculate. Oh, the girls are probably probably working together upstairs, and honestly, they really weren't.
Well, the problem with girls' night was that two of them were on the block and very likely to be on the block against each other. And
Yeah,
therefore, it wasn't really possible to lock anything in because which one do you choose? Like if Tucker's going to win the AI arena, one of Angelo or MJ has to leave. And so you can't make one big alliance that includes both of them.
yeah. Also, this is not the group for a girls' alliance. There's too many. There's so many. Like as much as people say, okay, Rubina's linked to Tucker for sure. T Core is linked to Chemo, okay, for sure. But a lot of them still want to do the girls' alliance plus Chemo. And
Mhm.
then you have like, okay, is Leah linked to Cam and Quinn and Joseph? And is Chelsea linked to like? I think the girls' alliance theoretically that's going to dominate a future season has to start much earlier than this before there's a billion, connections throughout the house.
I don't know. I feel like the correct way to do the gender alliance is to wait until all the showmances have started, and then do an alliance of all one gender where none of them are in a showmance. Because I think the showmance is always the thing that ruins it.
Yes, but like, a lot of seasons there's like 3 showmances. So you've got to have like the dominoes have to fall perfectly for this thing to work out. And I have faith one day it will.
One day. Um, okay, so we mentioned this earlier. Leah and Angela lock in their final two, and you know, like they again, they've had a very like social relationship to this point, but now, especially now that it's basically exposed, like they might as well lock in a strategic one.
Close enough. Welcome back, the Hitmen. Um, Look, I think this is Leah's one winning outcome. So lock it in.
I agree, but like also very dangerous to actively forge a strategic bond with Angela. It would have been much better to keep it social, I think.
I will say Angela like preface this final two with everyone has tried to make final twos with me. This is the only final two I want to make. And Leah, no verbal response, just goes, and I think it's locked in. It's going to be like day 86, and they're going to finally show it on the episodes and flash back to day 42, showing this as like, okay, this is actually how the season went down.
Well, no, they're gonna have to show it next week when Angela goes, Leah, how am I supposed to feel special when I know you've got Joseph and Quinn after you?
Have faith, Taran. Come on. I like them as a duo. I think they're great.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes. So then we talked about it already. Quinn and Joseph, they do their arm wrestling. They continue their debate about who would win in a fight. Leah gets involved. She does some arm wrestling. And then Joseph has a conversation with Leah, where on it's. I mean, first of all, it's filled with his classic Joseph stuff, right? I've been throwing comps. Here's all the ways I manipulate people. I'm so good at this game, so on and so forth. He mentions to her that he believes Quinn is jealous of him. So you know, not surprising to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "Oh, Joseph, you're the best." And let me tell you, like, he's just like, "I am." I mean, I mean, Leah, like, you're my favorite. Like, honestly, one of my favorite people I've ever met in my entire life. And like, I just want you to know, like, no matter what happens in this game, AKA I plan to cut you, I hope we're cool after this. This is like he's basically like, "Listen, Leah, I kinda like you," right? And
Yeah.
Leah's response is, "Yeah, I just hope we make it far in the game, Joseph. Just hope, this strategic relationship that we have works out for me," is what I'm hoping here. He says, "Yeah, yeah, but you never know what the game has in store, AKA I definitely still do plan to cut you, but I just never I never wanna hurt you. And so I hope you're not hurt when I cut you because I do care about you a lot, like a lot, a lot, a lot."
I think we're 1 week away from Joseph becoming Rubina. Some things are more important than the game. Leah, I think we can work things out. And I think a lot of people talk about Leah either like giving her too much praise for manipulating all the men or being way too like sexist about how she's manipulating all the men. She's not giving them much. Like she
She's
really
really
isn't.
not.
Like she's just existing and by virtue like she's being arguably nicer. I don't just nice. And
I
they're
think
taking it and running with it.
I think my theory is that, that she said she was a chubby chaser,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden it was like, "Woo, I've got a chance."
Taryn, okay, I have a theory about this from my time in the house. In casting, my whole thing, because you got to get quirky things about yourself. I said I was into MILFs. Like women in their 40s who can offer me an internship. That was my line. It's funny. I've never dated anyone above the age of 35. Like that's a little crazy for me. I don't know. I think Leah went into these interviews, talked about chubby chasers. It helps you in casting. It's a cool thing. And then you get in the house and you're like, well, I guess I'm going to keep it up. I guess you have to continue this facade. And let's be real. Like Joseph's got a little chub. That sounded horrible.
Well,
Holy.
I think the thing it's not about like feeling like you are necessarily chubby yourself, but like if you are not, Tucker or Cam, and somebody says they're a
Yeah.
chubby chaser, you're like, well, that means that they're not automatically going to go to Tucker or Cam, that I've got a chance, right?
No, you don't have a chance, Joseph. But I do hope they're friends outside the house. She's done a lot less talking bad about Joseph than a Quinn. So I don't know if Joseph's in for as rude of an awakening.
That's true. She is picking it up though.
Oh yeah. And as
um,
time goes on, there's less and less strategy to talk about. Like these things compound and get worse and worse.
hmm. Well, he says he cares about her a lot, like a lot. And she says, "I appreciate your honesty." And I'm always going to give that back to you. And you know what? I've never given your name up, Joseph, and that's not true, but she says it. And I hope that you would never give my name up. Uh,
Well,
again, like he is kind of, he's trying to sort of tell her how he feels, and she's responding, in my eyes, very clearly. Like she's trying to be, I guess, nice, but also tactful. You could say one or the other. By making it pretty clear, like I am not responding to your feelings about me. I am responding in terms of game. And he eventually seems to take the hint and starts talking about game again.
yeah, it's always tough with Joseph though because he's always in his own head about these things. And I think he's often thinking of how he's coming off even more than what he's actually saying. Like a lot of times he tries to like feign emotion in conversations. And maybe if you want to be charitable, Joseph right now, you can say Joseph is just trying to like forge some deeper personal connection with Leah. I don't think that's our perspective necessarily. But I'm trying to give him something.
Now, Leah still feels like she can't trust Joseph much. At least that's what she says to other people. She feels like he is like a mole from the guys trying to work on her. So we'll see. We'll see what all of what comes of all of this. And honestly, this was kind of like a filler day, like just a lot of paranoia, a lot of like loosening of the bonds that tie the structure together. And there's really not any solidly set plan for the eviction yet. Like if the vote happened right now, MJ is probably the most likely to leave, followed by Angela, followed by Tucker. But there's still like the conversations haven't really happened yet that need to happen in order to actually lock that vote in. And then there's always the chance that something does shift in the minutes before the eviction, given certain results. So still a little bit up in the air here.
I just think MJ has such a clear path to staying against either of them. Like,
I agree.
there's like one or two people in the house who benefit from keeping Tucker, one or two people who benefit from keeping Angela, and everyone else benefits from theoretically keeping Mackenzie if she wants to work with them. If she just has a one on one with everybody saying, I would like to work with you, I think everyone would be on board. She's just the safe consensus target right now. Um, she's active. I think she'll have the conversations. The problem is because of her theories, she might throw the wrong person under the bus and then she'll start losing votes instead of picking new ones up. Like I think she should run the most fake, easy, no information spreading BB campaign. And I really think she should stay this week.
I agree. I think she needs to stop with the theories right now while she's in danger and just focus on I'm a number for you. And I think that will, because Angela is also going to be shooting herself in the foot probably. So like if you can just avoid doing that and just focus on like what she was doing the other day when she was like nobody cares about me. I never talk to anybody. I just want to be brought into something. Like that's much more effective than like hey, I think these three people, Quinn, Cam, and Chelsea, aka my biggest advocates right now, they're all in an alliance.
But she doesn't have the information. She doesn't know, and it's a really tough spot in Big Brother when you don't know who to campaign to.
Yeah.
And, like, the thing that a lot of people do is you either guess who to campaign to, which is often wrong, or you campaign very broadly, which usually doesn't work either, but I think this time it might.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else, Corey, that you wanted to bring up?
No, what a ridiculous day of feeds. I
Quite
mean,
ridiculous.
T-Core, Chemo, and Rubina had more late night talks, and they were not worth bringing up.
Not really. Well, a lot more talk about Tucker, a lot more just general chat. So that is what we have for you today. I will, of course, be back tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern to update you on everything that happens today on the Big Brother 26 live feeds, including potential conversation about the vote. I would imagine that T-Core, Chemo, and Rubina get talking and going back and forth about who they want out at some point today. And they probably won't decide until tomorrow anyway. Um, Quinn will probably be pushing Angela some more. MJ will be spouting more theories, and it'll be a silly day of feeds. So stay tuned for that. Tonight's 2-hour episode, I'll be on Twitch live watching with all of you. You can have it over there and hit the follow button. You'll be notified when the episode starts because I'll be streaming. And we'll hang out, watch it together. Be a good time. Then after the episode, podcast here, RHAP. Check it out. Corey, what do you got going on?
Yeah, I just want to say it's one of those dangerous new things that I've picked up on Big Brother, where every season we have a 2-hour episode dedicated to Yankee Swap. Like,
Right?
it is a waste of everybody's time. But yeah, I'm where I am. Twitch.tv/Cory Wurtenberger, streaming a lot about Big Brother and stuff of the sort. America and I are on Patreon, patreon.com/AmeriCory. We're currently watching Big Brother 7, just finished week 1, and she's like, how does season 6 not steamroll the whole thing? And I'm like, wait till you see the next 3 HOHs. But that's what I've got going on, and otherwise I'll be back here next Wednesday.
All right. Well, that is what we have for you then today. Thank you all so much for joining us. And I will see all of you next time.